day and knew Ellen very well. For all that don't know, I'm 7 years younger than Ellen. Growing up with Baruch was usually enjoyable and fun, because I say usually. We were all treated the same, but frankly, Ellen got away with a little more than same. As kids, we had chores to do, like cleaning the table, washing dishes. Ellen didn't like to do the chores any more than Sandy and I like to do the chores. When it was her turn to wash dishes, I might be walking down the hall when Mom would call her back to the kitchen to wash the dishes. She'd smack me pretty good. She knew that smacking Mom was probably not a good option. We took driving trips all over the eastern U.S. and eventually dropped Ellen at camp in New York and sometimes in Texas, and did that really each year for many years. Ellen was really just one of the kids, and she would hold her own with Sandy and me, or any of our cousins and close friends. We had a lot of fun together, and fairly regularly we'd either sleep at one of our aunts or uncle's houses, either one of their houses. It was really like having 6 parents. Not a lot of fun sometimes. To everyone in our extended family, including very close friends like the Schnurs, Ellen was special, but fit in just as any member of the family. Mom and Dad made sure that she had the best education up to and including graduating high school in 1970. Today that may not seem very unusual, but education was no easy task for special needs in 1950. They took a difficult step in 1975 and moved Ellen into the Cullen Residence Hall. It was called the Center for the Retarded, and she lived and worked at the center's workshop for 40 years. She loved the independence, the living, the work there, and for a while she actually took the bus to work, until the day she fell asleep, and the driver contacted us when he was parking the bus at the end of the evening. I'll share a little story of deception during the time she lived in Cullen. About a year after Susan and I were married, and Susan was going to the U of H, Ellen would call her and tell her that she had spoken with me, and I wanted her to bring her to our house for dinner. This went on for several weeks, and finally, I asked Susan, why is she coming home to eat with us on Wednesdays? She told me what Ellen had told her, and at that point she asked Ellen. And I asked her, what do they have to eat on Wednesdays? She said, Ellen said, pizza, and I don't. She caught herself right before she said it. But she was fine. We got a good laugh out of that. While we had her for dinner many more times, we didn't always know it. We also learned about her ability to scheme very well. Unfortunately, Mom and Dad's decision to let Ellen live there didn't serve its original purpose of being a stable place to live after they were no longer able to take care of her. The mission of the center had changed, and she was moved back home. Ellen loved being in shul, and while I was president of UOS, when I was about to get up to make announcements on Shabbos or speak on Yom Kippur, Ellen would remind me loudly to go get it. In fact, after Mom died, when I asked Ellen if she wanted to come to shul, she'd ask if the elevator was working yet. Unfortunately, she never got here to shul with the high holidays in our new building. The elevator was working, but she decided not to come to shul. She then moved home to live with Mom and began working at Celebration Company, where she truly loved to do anything and learn new life skills for almost 10 years. Ellen loved building boxes, making candles, tying ribbons, and was proud of everything she did there, as we were proud of her. She didn't always follow the rules so well, but Ellen made some great friends, and back up Melissa, many more, and of course Kim. While working at Celebration Company, thank you, Jamie, and all the staff at Celebration. You could not have been better. When it was time to try to find another place for Ellen to live and thrive, Susan was out riding a horse with a friend off the Alameda in Belway. Then she found the perfect place for her to live, Noah's house. Ended up being fantastic. It was an independent, Ellen wanted to live independently in a clean, caring environment. That's what it was. I want to thank Christy, John Day, and the entire staff at Noah's for helping her over the past 8 years. Gracie, thank you for not only helping and care for her, but for being her friend. She truly cherished her friendship. While living in Noah's, Ellen also had a wonderful relationship with her boyfriend, Jeffrey. Susan, over the past 8 years, you've done a beautiful job of caring for ensuring that Ellen had everything she needed to be happy and healthy. I think you made a huge difference in her life. I love you, and she surely loved you too. Ellen Hoffman's been our family doctor for many years. Ellen, your care for Ellen was constant and consistent. You've been a pleasure to have as part of our family. I'd also like to thank our caregivers, especially during the last 8 months for life. Quita, Jean, Kenny, Eva, and the picture. You'll see them in front. Jack. And thank you for loving care. And I mean love. Ellen got an aggressive form of stage 4 lung cancer last July. And by the end of December, it was necessary to have for her to go to skilled nursing facility for a while, and then move to a place that had the ability to help care for her during this next phase of her life. Due to her fond memories of 7 acres, while volunteering with Mom every Saturday, coupled with the wonderful care that we knew that she would receive there, we all agreed that she should stay at 7 acres. In the last few minutes of Ellen's life, Ellen said while sitting up, "I've been waiting for you." At that time, she lay down and peacefully died. We truly feel that she saw Mom and Dad or both, and decided it was time. During our 67 years together, I learned so much from her. I was proud to be her brother, friend, and protector. I loved her more than words can describe. Ellen, I miss your beautiful, infectious smile, wet kisses, your wonderful spirit, your positive attitude, even in the worst circumstances, truly until the end.
Ellen loved being here today. She was including dozens of famous people with a beautiful smile and questions about their well-being. Ellen never had just acquaintances. Anyone she met was immediately her best friend. I've been hearing from people that I had no idea that Ellen knew, who had such wonderful things to say about her. Ellen was a people person. The second chapter of Pirkei Avot, The Ethics of the Fathers, states, Shammai Omer, Aset Toratcha Keva, Amor Ma'at, Aseh Harveh, V'Haveh Mekabel, Ekol Adam, V'Sefer Panim Yafot. Shammai would say, make your Torah study of its practice, say little and do a lot, and greet everyone with a smile. You should receive your fellow man with a pleasant countenance. Greet everyone with a smile. Ellen certainly lived by that maxim. Everyone got a big smile and a greeting from her, and the wet kisses, and she loved meeting new people. I'm going to continue by reading the words that my kids, Asher and Naomi, wrote last night. They're much more eloquent than I am. We borrowed their voices for a little bit. Asher wrote, "And Ellen, what a life you lived, a life you lived so well. You were such a connector, always caring and curious about the many, many people in your life that you knew and loved. You were always so interested in the day-to-day of my life, of Miriam and my kids' lives. And I know this is true about so many of your family members. And you were caring and curious about so many people. Only you could arrive at a Pesach hotel and have made friends with all of the employees in the amount of time it takes most people to unpack their suitcases. And you knew how to find joy in life, even in the midst of hardship. Even in the last few weeks, you were thrilled to share your excitement of having won again bingo, or of having had ice cream, or visiting our puppies on a video call. You live your life to the maximum, connected, active, contributing, and full of positivity. I will miss you and love you always." Naomi wrote, "On Friday night, after I lit Shabbat, we let them know that Ellen had passed away about 15 minutes before candle lighting in Israel. So this was very raw for her. After I lit Shabbat candles and had myself a good cry, I went around the house and collected some of our Aunt Ellen originals, a few different baby blankets. I think one may have been rubbed down to yarn, some granny squares, and a few different items made from the cabinet she had painted. I looked at them and felt so incredibly proud. Aunt Ellen made those things look easy, but I once tried my hand at crocheting, and I certainly don't have the knack for it that Aunt Ellen did. As I thought about it, there's a few other things that Aunt Ellen could do that just came naturally to her, and definitely not to me. Aunt Ellen had an uncanny sense of direction. While I can get lost in a grocery store, she could navigate herself around Houston, which might be the most confusing city in the world, and she did it without waves. She also could talk to anyone. I remember when we go away for Pesach together, by the time I come back for breakfast the first morning, Aunt Ellen had already met the wait staff and made friends with them. She knew every person who worked in the hotel by name, and that was just the norm for Aunt Ellen, making friends and connections everywhere she went. I think Aunt Ellen had such an easy time talking to people because there were no artificial barriers, no labels or preconceived notions, just simple, easy connections. And the other thing that was so completely natural for Aunt Ellen was her commitment to family. She called her family members every day to keep in touch, to remind them to eat lunch and take their medicines, to let them know what she was up to. She could connect with anyone, but family, blood relative or otherwise, was special and was always the most important. Aunt Ellen, I'm proud to be your niece, and I'm going to try to be more like you and work on the things that came so naturally to you, but are a little harder for the rest of us. To find my creative side and to try to simply connect with others and care about them the way you always did." Ellen was a year and 3 days older than me. I'd say I was a surprise. Not unwanted, as my mother would say, but a surprise. After I was born, her pediatrician told my parents that Ellen would never walk or talk or do anything. Ha! Fortunately for all of us, Mom and Dad refused to accept this, and they went to doctors all over the country with Ellen trying to find a cure, which of course there wasn't. In the days before special education was mandated, my mom drove her across town every day to a special ed class. They were determined that she experienced as much as she was capable of. Unlike many of us, Ellen was willing to try things out of her comfort zone, and she wasn't afraid to fail. It's a lesson that we can all learn from. For instance, starting when we were 6 or 7 years old, Daddy frequently took us to the ponies on Main Street. Everybody remember Wonderland? And although Ellen was afraid of these giant beasts, she tried it and she was able to do it, and she was so proud of herself. She was in a special Girl Scout troop, and although it was scary being away from home, she went to Scout camp. When she was a teenager, she even flew by herself to New York to go to a Jewish camp for special needs youth. Mom was much more worried than Ellen was, Ellen was sure that everything would be all right. When she learned to crochet, I remember several times that she got halfway through a granny square or blanket, realized it didn't look the way she wanted, and she would just rip out the crocheting and start over. She wasn't frustrated or angry, just try again. That's a good lesson for all of us. When she and Mom got their first iPhones, Mom was afraid of touching the buttons because she was afraid she would screw something up or break it. She never got past games and phone calls. For Ellen, her world opened up. She could play games, call friends and family, get emails. She wasn't afraid of messing up the phone, but she did on a regular basis. If I didn't hear from Ellen for a day or two, I would call Max and he would tell me that she messed up the settings and someone had to go over and reset the phone. But that was okay with her. She got to see who it came to reset it. When Ellen lived at the Cullen Residence till about 15 years ago, she had to take public buses to several jobs that she held. Mom and Dad were petrified, but Ellen knew where she needed to go, and she knew how to ask directions if she got lost. I remember receiving a call once from Brenda Tansky. I don't know how many of you remember Brenda, who was working for an optometrist in the medical center. Ellen lived over on Parkway, and she said, I just want to let you know that Ellen is here. I said, what do you mean Ellen is here? She said her glasses need adjusting, so she's no. One of Ellen's proudest moments was walking across the stage at Madison High School, receiving her high school diploma, which, as Max said, was no easy feat in those days. Being her younger sister was not always easy, especially as we grew older teenagers. I had school activities, NCSY, Young Judea, and Ellen wasn't able to participate. She would sometimes cry and say, it's not fair, and it wasn't. And as a teenager, I wasn't always the most patient with her outbursts, and I asked her forgiveness for my thing. At that time, there were no Jewish social activities for special needs children. Mom tried several times to start a Hebrew school class, but never succeeded. The parents of the special needs kids just didn't want to get involved. They didn't want her to go out of the house, and Mom was very frustrated. But Ellen came with us to Shul and Shabbat and holidays, loved sitting in the front row at Shul, singing the prayers, and I was thrilled she was reading the Hebrew, even though I knew she couldn't. She would even show people what page to turn to. She loved our huge family singers and loved to read out loud from the Haggadah and say Baruch. Eventually, the Jewish community started various social programs, and Ellen was an avid participant in Nite Owls, Yachad, and enriching. I think at that point she had a more active social life than I did. Ellen had so many talent. Mom taught her to crochet. She made hundreds of crocheted granny squares and eventually started crocheting beautiful blankets, which were cherished by her grandkids, her nieces and nephews, and other cousins. She even took custom orders several times. When she began working at Celebration Company 10 years ago, she learned art photography, ceramics, paper-mache greeting cards, candle rolling, and many other skills. She was the star salesperson of the annual Honeyless Honey Cake sales. Could anybody turn her down? Ellen was intellectually limited, but she had so much common sense. She had a phenomenal sense of direction. You see it in here? Whenever I drove her somewhere, she would tell me a better way to get there. She used to ride public buses to work, even transferred by herself. She made her own Metrolift arrangements, following up to confirm the time, the name of the driver, and the manifest number. I have no idea what the manifest number is, but Ellen had. Ellen's main skill was connecting with people. When we went to Florida for Pesach, within a day she knew the names of the waiters, the doorman, and half the guests at the hotel. She would have long conversations with them and would sit in the lobby to make sure they showed up to work. After we made Aliyah, Ellen called us every day to find out how we were, how the kids and grandkids were, what the weather was in Israel, and what we were eating for breakfast. I will miss those calls so much. She called the twins at their office every day to make sure they turned on the computer, ate lunch, and would call back to see how much money they made. Ellen had so many amazing experiences. When she moved to Noah's house 8 years ago, she went on trips to the casinos where she played with slot machines. I've never been to a casino, don't want to, never went. She went on a cruise with them as well, and she loved it. She went to Astros games, movies, and had a really full life. She had dear friends, Becca and Melissa, and several others that she loved to have overnights with and go to the movies with. She went with Max and Susan to Panama for Pesach last year and had a great time. We are so grateful to Ellen's caregivers over the past months. When we were in Israel, I was kept up to date by the caregivers, and I knew that she was in the best hands. Eva, Jean, Kim, Laquita, and Natasha were so loving toward Ellen and helped her to continue in as full a life as she was capable of. They knew how to push her a little and knew when to back off. Each had their own personality and were able to relate to Ellen in their own style. Even when Ellen couldn't answer her phone, I knew that I could get through to all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And most importantly, Martin and I are grateful to Max and Susan, who took charge of Ellen's care since we met Ellen 7.5 years ago. Being so far away and not being able to be involved hands-on was so difficult for us, and knowing that Susan and Max were so dedicated to making sure that she had the best care was a real comfort to us. And Margaret and I were so grateful that we were here with Ellen 6 weeks ago and again for the past 2.5 weeks. Ellen was very weak, but we went together to bingo. She wipes them out. She had a bag full of quarters, this big, for her movies. She went to musical performances where she sang along with the performers. We took puzzles together, video called our kids and grandkids, saw Asher and Miriam's newest puppies, and ate large amounts of ice cream. We will miss you, Ellen, and the light you radiated. Yehi's the crown.
I had the great pleasure of knowing my Aunt Ellen for 32 years, through family vacations, Pesachs in Florida and Panama, holiday celebrations, and sad occasions too. It wasn't until I was a bit older that I realized that not everyone was as lucky as I was to have their own Aunt Ellen. Aunt Ellen was born in the 1950s, when the world was in many ways not ready for people as special as she was. She was lucky enough to be born into a family who refused to let the world push her aside. She lived a long life filled with love, fierce protection, and a seat at the table, our table where she belonged. Because of that, and because of all of you here today who loved and cared for her, she lived a life filled with joy, learning, safety, love, a little mischief and scheming, and a whole lot of bossing people and dogs. They minded her, though. She was a key member of our family businesses. She would call our office every single day, often multiple times a day. And when I answered the phone, I got her famous yell. She wanted to make sure we made it into the office. Did I remember to feed the dogs today? Was I doing my work? Where was my dad? What were the dogs doing right now? Why didn't I know what the dogs were doing right now? Did I eat lunch? Oh my God, if I hadn't eaten lunch, Ariel, you have to eat lunch now. For the calls that neither my dad nor I were available for, she would talk to other team members, asking Sandy and Joni, who are here today, in the office to make sure my dad ate lunch. This was not a suggestion, it was actually more of a threat than a request, but it was a threat based in love. While my dad and I mainly needed lunch reminders and some very important document shredding, Aunt Ellen's keen business sense told her that the twins, Uncle Steve and Uncle Mike and Neil at Twinco, needed a little bit more help than that. She would call every day to check on the business and ask, did you turn on your computer? Did you have breakfast? How much money did you make today? Let's just say she really kept the wheels of business turning in this family. When she recently moved to 7 Acres, she began playing bingo more, often winning big, as you heard. I believe it was at this point that she decided to take a step back from some of her professional obligations. Coincidentally, Uncle Mike and Uncle Steve decided to retire around the same time. I think they realized they just couldn't run the business anymore without their secret weapon, my Aunt Ellen. While her business sense had proven invaluable to our family, what truly made Aunt Ellen special was her heart. She saw the best in everyone and everything. Her love language was hand-crocheted blankets and, of course, reminders to eat. I think there are many lessons we can all learn from how Aunt Ellen lived her life. First, always see the silver lining. No matter how tough your day may have been, always look for the positives. Even in her last few months, weeks, and days, as Aunt Ellen declined, her nurses and caregivers mentioned that she almost always had a big smile on her face. She would light up when she told you about the highlight of her day, whether it was one of those bingo wins or a visit from a family member or dog. Next, celebrate life's victories, big and small. I will never forget one of my near daily calls from Aunt Ellen. She was with her coworkers from the celebration company at the JCC gym. She was beyond excited to tell me that she had used the stationary bike. She had worked very hard and now she was very tired. Guess how many calories I burned? You won't believe it. Wow, Aunt Ellen, that's amazing. How many calories? I burned 14 calories. Did you believe that? And we celebrated that accomplishment as a big accomplishment together. She never held a grudge. She would get upset, sure, but never for long. Once a friend of Dayan, always a friend of Dayan. That's not to say no one was ever in Ellen's doghouse. I'm sure we all have been for a minute or two, but it never lasted long. The best quality from Aunt Ellen that I like to think that I got from her was her complete lack of filter or embarrassment, and her ability to be unapologetically herself. She would tell you exactly what she was thinking. Exactly what she was thinking. There was no sugarcoating. There was no considering how it might come across. You just knew. You knew. You knew what your outfit was like. Perhaps most notably, she kept us all updated on her bodily functions. If you have had the pleasure of being at a Reichenthal family table, you know that this is a long-standing tradition. As my Aunt Sandy always says, it's not a Reichenthal freezing warm meal if we haven't discussed our body. She was not afraid to get what she wanted by any means. My dad told the story of saying, "Oh, Susan told me that you're supposed to pick me up today for dinner," and they just never asked each other any questions about it for weeks. She got away with it. With me, she would call and she'd say, "Your mom told me to call you and have you buy me this thing that I want." I'd say, "Aunt Ellen, is that true?" "Well," and then she tried to change the subject to another thing that I was inspired. People loved Aunt Ellen. Everywhere she went, she made an impression. And everywhere she went, there were people who knew how special she was. People who would jump through hoops to make sure she was safe and happy. Now for what I think had the absolute biggest impact on Aunt Ellen's life and happiness. All of you. Over the last few months, in and out of the hospital and 7 Acres, the feedback was consistent. Doctors, nurses, and staff told us over and over again that Aunt Ellen had more visitors than anyone else they had ever seen. She had so many people fiercely looking out for her, and she knew she was never alone. Even when one of us wasn't with her, one of Ellen's angels in the bright pink was always there, and we know that you treated her like family. While she had an army of people loving and protecting her, Aunt Ellen had her own way of showing love. If you told her, "I love you," at the end of a visitor call, her immediate response was always, "Okay," or "Goodbye." That was it. No hesitation, no return of sentiment, just a swift exit from the conversation. But I never let that be the final word. I would repeat it over and over again. "Aunt Ellen, I love you. I love you. I love you." Again and again until she Then something amazing happened. In the last few months, he started saying, I love you back unprompted. I do take credit. No prodding, no repetition, just her freely giving us those words. Not just to me, but to all of us. It was a shift that brought us all immense joy. We all laughed and smiled over it every time. And I got to look the recognition and work that I put into that. I appreciate it. She made us all work hard for it, but that made it all the more special. I think that's the perfect example of who Aunt Ellen was. Someone who loved deeply in her own way, and when she was surrounded by enough love, she learned to give it back just as deeply. Aunt Ellen was so many things, joyful, mischievous, and deeply loving. She left a gaping hole in our family, our businesses, and our dinner table, one we will never quit fill. But if we want to honor her, I think we can do it by taking a few pages from her book. Be unapologetic with yourself. Celebrate every win. Yes, even 14 calories. See the best in people. Always try to find a reason to smile. Remind the people you love to eat lunch. She was lucky to have all of us, but it doesn't even come close to how lucky we were to have her. Aunt Ellen, we love you, and we will always miss you. I know you're with Buffy and Baby enjoying some raw hot dogs while the rest of you.
Dear friends, Becca, Kala, share a few words with us.
My name is Becca. I remember Ellen. She came to my house. We played Uno. We played some bingo with him. And she's our bingo queen. And I really miss her. We went to the movies. She spent the night with me a lot. And I really miss her. And it was just a shock to me. And I love to get the Uno cards in my car to remember her. So I just hope everything's going to go well and with the family. And I really miss you all so much. And hopefully I can get some more family members to see me at my house. Thank you and thank you.
We're going to ask our favorite Liz to share some reflections.
Holy last night. I asked God to speak about Ellen and Yachad. Yachad is an extension-like program to those with special needs. And as Sandy said, there was no program in the city. for young adults with special needs. As the youth director of UOS, I tried to fill that need. And we were very fortunate to have Dr. Sally Berkowitz serve as the Yachad coordinator. But the purpose of Yachad was really twofold. One part, obviously, was to assist those with special needs. And Sally did a remarkable job. The other part was for the NCS choirs to work at every Yachad program, and they would fight to do it. So Yachad served that key purpose, assisting the members of Yachad, but also bringing out very special features in the regular teenagers, that I use that word. So Max called me last night, I reflected on one of the last times I worked with Evan at NCSY. We had a week-long program in Orlando. And we brought a shadow along for Ellen. And I can tell you where I was in, don't ask me which part. It's all blended into one. And I remember getting a call at a candy kiosk that my father had taken a turn for the worse. And in the span of a couple of hours, we had her on a plane back to Houston. You know, I was thinking, why don't we do that for traveling alone? I really don't remember the answer to that. But in evaluating, Ellen brought out the best in people, bringing out feelings and emotions that we didn't always know were there. In terms of that, we have to be thankful to her. May our memory always be for a blessing.
On our third row here, you see all four of the angels there. That's Miss Eva, Miss Jean, Miss Lisa, and Miss Anastasia. Ellen was more than a patient. Our parents, we have enjoyed a lot of time with her. She will be forever missed. I have a little short poem I would like to read. It's called Whisper, Farewell. In whisper of song, a life whisper bird, a soul taken swift, with love yet unheard. Gone from our sight, though memories will change. A present cherished in each tribute we've made. But though she's departed, our heart will remain. Our love will continue in our hearts that are heavy with loss. Your light will sustain, though tears may be feared, we'll find solace in time knowing your spirit lives on me. Thank you. One thing I would like to say, I'm doing this, my 7:30 phone call. Kim, it's time to get up. You gotta wake back up, because you gotta go to work. Take a nap. Did you take your nap yet? No. Well, did you have coffee? Well, get up. I'm going right now. Going right now. And I'll go in there and I'll put the phone on speaker. Yeah. And so, I'm with them.
Choose not to count each other directly. This is our long-standing practice. We find in this week's Torah reading in Casey Stock that Jews ought not to be counted directly, but only when they give a donation coin. And the traditional reason for this is the ayin hara, the evil eye. That God forbid when one person would be singled out and counted and everyone looks at them, someone else might cast evil glance upon them, might think ill of them, might wish ill upon them. But we all know that Ellen could be counted directly. Ellen could be counted directly because she was pure and sweet. She was joyful. She shared her love, she shared her day, she did what she did. She brought you in that special joy. She'll be very, very, very dearly missed. The Ramban tells us that when Moshe Rabbeinu was commanded to count the Israelites, one of the reasons he needed to have there is to see how they are doing. He needs to go look everyone in the eye and check in with them. And with Ellen, he would have gotten a reversal. I guess he would have showed up. She would have been reminding him that he needs to take care of himself. She would have told him he would come to visit her, that she had spoken to them on FaceTime, what the dogs were up to. She made him feel good. And she made everyone who came into contact with her feel very joyful. Her memory should be for a blessing. Please rise as we're going to sing a Candelare. We're at the Baruch of the Share of Power. As the other road, as Max echoed, the Candelare is a term to take underneath the divine presence, very, very dear soul. We know that Ellen will have no trouble being received. שאנחנו מתפללים על עשרה נשמתה, וגם פינה דיונותיה, לכן והחיים, יסתירה סדר כנפיו לעולמי, יצור וצור חיים ונשמתה, אדוני ונחלתה, ותנוח בשלום ושבת, ונאמר אמן. Shem is her portion. She will rest in peace in her allotted place. We continue with the burial at Israel, 4714 Airline Drive. Please do join us then. The mincha will be this evening at the Reichenthal home at 7:10 p.m.
So half of them it's been work. So Avery is my cousin, and my friend Scott, and they're both related. I think. Oh, and Melanie, that's right. So,
I don't know. Ernie would tell you.
oh, that's right.
That's